It's time for Coffee with the Chicken Ladies, a podcast for people who love chickens.
Hey everybody and welcome. It's Chrisie&Holly from Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. We're here and this is episode number 115 of our podcast where we talk about everything chicken, family, fun, and
more chickens.
More chickens. We drink a ton of coffee. I'm talking a ton. But most importantly,
we hug chickens every day.
And we kiss them too. Don't forget. We brew coffee from a little coffee house here in Bel Air, Maryland. Holly Ann, what kind of coffee are we brewing today?
This is hazelnut.
Very good for a sunny yet cold February day. Are you ready to sip some coffee and chat?
I am, but first, a word from our sponsor.
We have some exciting news to share from our sponsor, Grubbly Farms. This month, you can receive 30% off if you're a first-time buyer.
I'm a longtime subscriber, and my flock love the healthy, nutritious treats. Orders $40 and more ship free.
If you haven't heard, Grubbly's has a fantastic layer pellet and crumble feed. It's packed with plant and insect protein. It's perfect for those picky chickens and ducks.
This offer does not apply to subscriptions and cannot be combined with any other discounts.
It's a great time to try Grubbly Farms if you haven't yet. Use the code CWTCL30 for 30% off your first purchase. Try it today. Wow, it's super windy, super cold. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. There's a little bite to the air, it's true. The sun is out. I'm really grateful for that because 2 days previous we had sloppy, awful rain.
It was really, really bad. I hate the rain. The runs become so mucky and I just need to be adding some more wood chips to my runs because it's bad. Winter runs are horrible.
Yeah, it's like we have all the gross mud of a cold spring and we're still in February.
I'm ready for spring. I'm already putting up chick pics on our social media. I am ready for warm temperatures and none of this. I mean, we haven't had snow, which knock on wood is a good thing.
We had a dusting of snow more than you. Like the ground was covered. You're further south that you didn't get it, you lucky duck.
We just got a thin coating on our deck and that was it.
Okay.
But yeah, sometimes I think cold rain, like 36 degrees is even worse than snow, to be honest with you, because
it's hard to get away from it. And it all makes a mess. So we actually have a huge section of the sheep field right now that is mud, and that's not good. We'll be dealing with some of that this weekend.
Yeah. I have a little fun story for everybody out there. I had a little adventure in the yard, right in my own yard. I had Cornelia and Peggy out and Eliza. And I put Cornelia and Eliza back, and I had to get Peggy. And Peggy is the hardest of all my 20-some chickens. She doesn't want you to catch her at all.
Peggy is a very petite and very fast leg bar.
She's almost bantam size. She's so tiny, but built. So everybody knows I have 3 acres. So we're up near the house, and I'm like, okay, let me go and get her. And I'm on the phone with you.
Yep.
And I'm with one hand trying to get her. And she decides to run where we have about 8 to 10 evergreen trees that are about 30 feet high.
Yeah.
And run into the evergreen trees. And I'm by myself, no kids. They're all at school.
No.
My parents who are elderly are in the house, so they can't help.
I mean, essentially what happened is where the evergreen trees like lower down, there are so many branches. It's like a thicket. You can't physically get in there.
There's so many branches. So she went in directly where the trunk is, and there's no way you can get in there as one person. So I decide to grab a broom to extend my arms, and I'm trying to get her. And she's just running from one side to the other because I'm one person. As soon as I get her out, she runs to another evergreen. This goes on for almost an hour until the kids finally get home. And at one point, I'm on the phone with you because I was so frustrated. She is preening and laying on a branch that's like 3 up, just staring at me, preening and sleeping.
She preened for a while. She's like, this is nice.
Took a nap.
She put her head down and took a nap.
Until the 2 girls got home from school. And it took all 3 of us another 30 minutes to get her out of the evergreen trees.
So needless to say, Peggy is not on the good list.
I was really badly scolding her while I was in the middle of this. I was like, Peggy, you're making me so angry right now. Like, so if somebody was videotaping me, I'm going to be on a reel somewhere running with a broom from in and out of 30-foot evergreen trees trying to get a chicken out. But yeah, that was my adventure of the week. And I was like, people think it's so fun. It's not always fun. So,
well, yeah, it was a sticky spot. There was no sense me coming over to help you because it would have taken me an hour to get to you.
Oh, yeah. I had to wait for the kids.
Yeah. And the whole time we're talking, Peggy's just hanging out in the tree, perfectly happy.
Oh, yeah. She's like looking at the broom like, yeah, try it. You can't even reach with your go-go gadget broom arm. So that was my fun for the week. And then I had to come in and eat like 10 Kit Kat candy bars afterwards. I didn't even taste them. I mean, that's like stress eating at its best. I come in, I'm like, give me a chocolate. Come on.
Chocolate now. I've been traumatized by a 3-pound hen.
I'm like, Peggy, you're not getting treats for days. Only food for you. So yeah, that was my fun adventure of the week.
I mean, these are the little things chickens do that people don't think about.
Oh my God. It was so hilarious to somebody else watching me, I'm sure.
Right.
Not to me in the moment. Not to me in the moment.
No. But you got her safely in.
Yes, with the help of both girls. She's not free ranging for a while with me.
She's grounded.
She's grounded. Okay, so let's go on to other things. If you're listening to our show and you're loving it, head over to Apple Podcast and leave us a written review. It does amazing things for the growth of our show. And while you're there, hit that subscribe button because that's a really nice way to help us grow. And you never miss an episode.
You can tell a chicken-loving friend or two about the podcast. You can share your favorite episodes on social media. You can visit our Etsy shop, check out the t-shirts and mugs that we have there. You can become a patron of the show. Check out patreon.com/coffeewiththechickenladies. And a big thank you to our most recent patrons. The other thing you can do to help support the podcast is visit our show notes, use our affiliate links and discount codes, and buy products from our sponsors.
Yay!
Hey, Chris.
Yeah.
Do you like subscription boxes?
Does it have anything to do with chickens?
Of course.
Then yeah. Let me take a minute to tell you about the Chicken Love Box. If you love goodies for your chickens and you need to go to chickenlove.com.
I love the mega box. Tons of useful products for my flock and a chicken tea for me.
You can't go wrong with a chicken tea. They are so cute and so soft.
In the November box, I absolutely love that glass rooster cutting board and the woven chicken tea towel.
I adore those Santa chicken hats and scarves, and I cannot wait to hang those chicken ornaments up on my chicken tree.
Boxes start at $39 a month. They ship immediately after your order, and shipping is always free.
Such a great deal. Don't wait. Get off the nest and click already. Use the code CWTCL50 for 50% off your first box of a 3-month subscription or more. That's chickenlove.com. That's chickenluv.com. Get your subscription today.
Have you heard of Strong Animals Chicken Essentials? They make natural supplements for your flock.
Strong Animals has used plant-based products and natural approaches to promote the health and vitality of backyard flocks. Their products contain organic essential oils, prebiotics, and other natural ingredients to support the immune system and digestive health. Give your chicks and chickens what they need to thrive with Strong Animals health products. Visit getstronganimals.com today.
The Breed Spotlight is brought to you by Murray McMurray Hatchery, defining quality for generations. For over a century, Murray McMurray Hatchery has remained a trusted family-owned business, working tirelessly to ensure our poultry meet the highest standards.
Whether you are an experienced enthusiast or just embarking on the journey, look to McMurray Hatchery for guaranteed quality, rare and heritage breeds, low minimums, and all the supplies you need to raise your flock. Request a free catalog today. Okay, so now it's about that time for the breed spotlight. Yeah. So this week's breed spotlight is
the Sulmtaler. The Sulmtaler is a beautiful, very old breed that originates in Austria.
It's another one of the hills are alive.
Yes.
With the sounds of chickens.
The Sulmtaler is a crested, large-fowl bird, and they have unusual and very pretty coloring. They are considered a dual-purpose breed, and they derive from a very old land race breed that's native to Styria. Styria is the region in Austria. Now, if Styria sounds familiar, remember that we profiled the Allstrier back in episode 106?
Right.
And we mentioned that their alternative name is the Styrian hen.
Uh-huh.
So there does seem to be a connection between the two birds. There are some sources suggesting that the Sulmtaler was a foundation breed for the Allstrier.
Okay, I can see that.
The name Sulmtaler comes from the valley of the river Sulm, which is an area in Austria that has been inhabited by humans since at least the Iron Age.
Nice.
According to Greenfire Farm, there are written mentions of the Sulmtaler dating as far back as the 1400s.
It's another ancient breed.
It really is. Now, have you pulled it up to look at it yet? I want to see your reaction when you see this hen.
Yeah, it's crested.
Do they remind you of anything when you look at them?
Yeah, leg bar. It does.
I could see it. They have the same kind of swept back crest.
The crest and the wiggly comb.
What about the coloring? What does the coloring remind you
You
of?
mean a Simon Faverolles? Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking at the head first, and I think everything this week is looking like a leg bar to me.
Peggy has traumatized you.
Peggy's traumatized me. But yeah, the coloring does look like a Simon Faverolles, and the head and the comb look like a leg bar to me.
So in the 1850s, we're talking around the time of hen fever, and that was the arrival of the Asiatics in Europe and the West. So around that time, people began breeding Cochins, Dorkings, and Houdans with the Sulmtalers. The Sulmtaler had a reputation for being an absolutely delicious table bird, like the most delicious in the world. I know.
Yeah, I don't like hearing that.
But the reality is, because of that, the reason that all this crossbreeding was taking place was to make them a bigger bird.
Okay.
So somewhere around 1900, so about 50 years later, interested breeders probably didn't like all the crossbreeding, and they started gathering up the non-crossed Sulmtalers that were still in existence.
Okay.
And they started working towards a consistent appearance, and they developed a breed standard.
And that's what we're looking at in this picture from over at Greenfire Farms.
Right. So the Sulmtaler is a large bird.
The roosters are weighing in at about 8 pounds, and the hens are about 6.5 to 7. It's another surprisingly big bird. Kind of like last week when we were talking about the turkin, and you thought the turkin was going to be little, and the turkin turned in to be the same exact size as this bird.
When you look at them, they don't look that large. You know, when you look at photos of them, can you imagine how big the crossbred birds must have been?
Yeah, they must have been like 10 pounds or something like that.
So almost all of them, and definitely all of the Sulmtalers in the U.S., are found in the golden wheaten variety. There are silver wheaten and blue wheaten varieties in Austria. And at one point, there was apparently a white in Germany. I'm not sure if that one's still in existence or not.
Okay.
Now, the Sulmtalers have that swept-backed crest, like the leg bar. They have a straight comb, and they have an S-shaped ruffle. You were mentioning that reminds you of the leg bar.
That's what Cornelia has, and Peggy, both of them.
And in Austria, they call it a wickle.
That's a cool name for it. It really does bring some interest to a straight comb. There's something about a plain straight comb, and then there's something about like the comb that has the curves in it. Bernadette, she's my barred rock, but she has that same crookedness in her comb.
Yeah.
And I love looking at combs like that. The thing with the combs like that is you have to be careful that they don't collect moisture in those little curves. You have to take care of it and kind of wipe them out.
Yeah, that's true. The hen's crest is lighter in color and it's slightly larger than the rooster's crest.
Well, that's a change.
Yeah, the rooster he still has the comb, but it's smaller and darker. She has like a big wheaten puff that sweeps back. The hens also look much shorter and plumper than the roosters.
I gotta look up a rooster now.
They're very handsome.
Okay, so they're definitely different. They have that cornflake kind of look on them where they're the multiple colors of all the golds, the browns, the green sheen, the black. They're very pretty roosters.
The breed has white earlobes, white legs, and actually a lot of fluff for that particular breed.
They look really fluffy.
By contrast, the roosters have a dark base, like a black breast, and then they have all those gorgeous copper and bronze feathers that you were talking about. They're really handsome.
And the roosters look totally different than the hens. Sometimes with different breeds, you have the hens and the roosters, and really the only difference in them is the body shape and the additional feathering. They're kind of all the same colors, but the rooster here looks like a totally different breed of chicken compared to the hen.
And that kind of reminds me of the Simon Faverolles as well. Nowhere did I see that there are Simon Faverolles bred into these birds. That's just what it reminded me of. So the breed prospered pretty well for a couple of decades, and then the First World War hit, and then the Second World War hit, and Austria did not fare well during the wars, and neither did the Sulmtaler. As usual, the breed was kept alive by a handful of dedicated breeders. Thank goodness for these people that gather up the last of these breeds.
It's still happening today with other breeds. So there are some breed heroes, as we could call them, that are trying to save certain chicken breeds from extinction. Without these people doing this kind of stuff, we wouldn't be having a show.
Yeah, it's a scary thought. There is a breeding program now at one of the Austrian universities, so they do have some support. There's also a bantam version of the Sulmtaler that was created in Germany in the 1960s. You can't get it in the US, you can get it in Europe. It's very popular with the European show community.
Let me see if I can look it up.
Okay. There's a British breeder that has a page about the Sulmtaler bantam.
There it is. It's cute.
It is a cute little bird. It really is. I might want this bird in a bantam. It's very cute.
The slick back crest always makes me think of like somebody from the 50s. It's like a dew.
Reports say that this chicken is active and loves foraging, but is friendly and docile.
Again, you get out what you put in with these chickens. So the more hands-on you are from the beginning, the more that they are going to accept you with hands-on during their life.
Now, because they're light in color, they would make a good target for aerial predators. So you need a covered run for them, as well as lots of places to hide if you let them out to free range, because birds this bright, a hawk can pick them out from a very long distance away.
Oh, yeah. I was watching some show, and it was this woman on a farm with her chickens, and she was trying to get a hawk predator to go away, and she was using pinwheels and this and that, and I'm thinking, nothing's working except a roof. That's the only thing that's going to work.
Yeah.
So always supervise your chickens while they're out, especially the bright ones.
Yeah. So these guys are probably a great help in the garden as well. They would make a good homestead breed, but they also make a very pretty pet chicken.
Oh, yeah. They're cute. They're cuddly. You can't go wrong.
They're not APA accepted, so they can't be shown in most shows at this point, but that's okay.
They're not known to go broody. They have the cream-colored eggs. It's always good to have white, cream, all different shades of brown, blue, green in your flock. So they're the cream, and they lay about 150 to 180 eggs per year. They're not the best of egg layers, but they'll make up for it in personality and being a nice pet.
I mean, that's respectable. If you average out their molt break, that's probably an average of 3 eggs a week.
Yeah, 2 to 3 a week.
It's respectable. I'm not sure you get this breed because you're looking for a super good layer.
No, I mean, this is a breed that you get because you're into chickens, you're into different breeds. It's not at that point about the egg laying. You have your solid egg layers, and then you have your chickens that are just pets.
I almost expected a chicken that looks like this to have feathered legs, but they don't.
Yeah, they have clean legs, that's for sure.
They do. And I was looking at them, and I found on the British Poultry Club website that little mention about the 3 breeds that were being bred into them, the Cochin, the Houdan, and the Dorking. I feel like all of them have a feature that would have shown up in their genetics. So obviously the Cochin's going to be feathered legs. The Houdan's going to be a crest, but it's not going to be the same kind of crest. Poof crest. And the Dorking, that 5th toe is a dominant gene.
Yeah.
So, whoever gathered the uncrossed versions of the Sulmtalers did a very good job.
Yeah, they got all the ones that didn't have hairy legs and an extra toe and
a giant poof.
Exactly.
So, where do you get them?
Should we go to our old favorite, Greenfire Farms?
They imported the Sulmtalers in 2011.
They sell them straight run there. So you have to be prepared to get boys if you're going to get from there. But it's really nice that you can get this chicken here in the States. And we didn't say, are they on any, well, they're not APA, so they're not on a list.
They are still considered a rare breed, but no, they're not on any of the American conservation lists. Greenfire does have hatching eggs too, but the same thing as a straight run. You have a chance with boys.
Yeah, so just be prepared and know what you want to do with your boys before you get them, if you want to keep them or find them another home. If you have the Sulmtaler, send us your pictures. We would love to see your pictures of this little bird.
If you're looking for a chicken coop that's produced in a planet-friendly, sustainable way, try Nestera.
Each coop is made from highly durable, 100% recycled plastic that keeps the equivalent of up to 2,000 shampoo bottles out of a landfill.
Their clean, modern design will fit into any garden or run area and comes with an industry-beating 25-year warranty and a range of handy accessories.
Simple to put together, so quick and easy to clean, and most importantly, red mite resistant. Your chickens will love it.
Quick shipping from Amazon.com or Nestera.us.
Use our code CWTCLP10 for 10% off. Check them out today. Roosty's proudly sponsors Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. If you're raising chicks or keeping chickens, take a look at Roosty's store on Amazon.com.
We've personally tested their products and we're huge fans. They have their famous nesting pads, those fantastic chick water and feeder kits, do-it-yourself port feeder kits, water and nipple, and water or cup kits.
And you don't even need to drive to the stores. They're all available for Prime delivery on Amazon.com.
Visit Amazon.com and check out the Roosties range or follow the link in our show notes.
Okay, so let's move on to main topic. Yeah. This week we have a special guest for our round table, and we're talking all about chick health and when it's time to go to the vets and what the vet can do to help your chicks. We want to welcome Dr. Rebecca Gounaris to our table. Hey, Dr. Rebecca, welcome back. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's so good to be back with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. This week on our round table, we're going to talk about chicks And when it's time to see Dr. Rebecca, if there's something going on and the things that we should look for in these chicks so that we know it's exactly that time to call the veterinarian.
This is helpful for both our experienced chicken keepers and all of you new folks out there who are getting chicks for the first time. And we've had a lot of you reaching out to us. So we're just going to cover the basics with Dr. Rebecca, just to give you a quick idea of the things you want to do for sure. And then she's going to tell us a little bit more about the things you want to look for, areas of concern where you definitely want to get your chick to the vet.
Okay, so Dr. Rebecca, start us off. What should we be looking for?
I will say most of the time when you get your chicks the first day, expect them to be kind of sleepy. They need time to acclimate to their new environment. It's a big change for them. So the first 24 hours, I don't expect them to be super active. So don't panic immediately. I know I even did as a first-time chick owner. And I do think something that is just nice to do is to provide any new chicks you get with the vitamin and electrolyte packets in the water. It can't hurt to do that for a few days. But by day 2, day 3, they should be pretty active, zooming around your brooder. If you're seeing one that's not really playing with the rest of the chicks, just kind of sitting in one spot and sleeping a lot, that's a lot of times, sometimes your only sign that something is not right with that chick. So I would say a lot of times the signs can be kind of subtle, but those chicks should be pretty active and zooming around once they've kind of acclimated to the brooder.
So if they're not zooming around, what are some of the things that can be causing this? Number one would be that they're cold, correct?
And that's especially if you're seeing a bunch of chicks, either they're all huddled together and kind of sleeping together in one spot, that could be that they're cold. So temperature, you're usually going to see affect everyone in the brooder. I know a lot of people traditionally use heat lamps. I personally love the brooder pans just because I think that they are, one, they're safer. They're less of a fire hazard and you don't have to like lift and lower them as much as the heat lamps. So that's my personal preference. I don't know what you guys prefer.
Yeah, definitely. We always say to use the brooder plate, especially if you have them in a heated area normally and they can get under there, they can stay warm. It's more natural, like the broody mom being on top of them. But to have that heat lamp available, say you need to warm them up pretty quick, you can just use it in a pinch when you're right there, get them super warm, and then back under the brooder plate. It's definitely the safest way to go with the brooder plate. That's for sure.
Yeah, you want to watch out. If you have your brooder in a very cold barn or an unheated garage where it gets very cold, or if we have a cold snap, you might need to either move your brooder indoors or you might need to go with a backup heat lamp if you absolutely have to. The brooder plates are fine in a temperate atmosphere. But if you have your chicks someplace very cold, again, like an unheated barn, they don't always work the best. So you need to watch out for that. I did have the experience of having a chick arrive through the mail that was chilled. And that was a case where there was only one chick that was cold. And the only way we could tell, she was staying still with her eyes closed and not moving, not doing anything. We gave her a little while, still didn't warm up. So we actually took her out and blow dried her to get her temperature up. Yeah, it was really cute. Pete did it. My husband did it. He has this tiny little Fayumi chick in the blow dryer. It was really sweet. But when you have them shipped to you, I feel like you have to have even more of an eagle eye about their body temperature, just because they have a bigger chance of getting chilled. If you're coming home from the feed store, like you said, give them a day because they're probably going to be sleepy from stress. But if you do see that one or two, if they've been shipped that just aren't moving after a few hours, I think that's probably cause for making sure they're not heading towards hypothermia.
The other thing we were saying, Dr. Rebecca, is having the brooder set up beforehand can help. Yes. If you have the brooder plate on before the chicks even get there, they'll already have that environment to go into that's nice and toasty. So that can be one thing that everybody can do so they won't have that problem.
Great point.
Sorry.
And with chicks being cold too, something that's also really important is making sure that their feathers are nice and dry, because if they get wet, they will get chilled very, very quickly. And one, their bodies are so tiny that they lose heat very rapidly, and they have just down feathers at that point. So they don't have any of those body feathers to really help thermoregulate. So if they get wet, agreed. I think having that heat lamp as a backup is really important, or pulling out the hair dryer, I think is probably needed in those cases.
It worked really well. I've not experienced this because I don't keep them, but I've heard that baby silkies, you do not want them to get wet. You really need to keep them dry all the time.
So the next thing is the chicks are in there and you're noticing some abnormalities in the bowel movements. So the poop is looking maybe a little too soft. They have a little bit of pasty butt, or you're noticing some blood. That would be a time to call you and say, can I bring them in?
Yes,
Correct?
absolutely. I would say pasty butt is very common. I have seen it, unfortunately, even a lot at feed stores. Like you'll see the chicks already have it before you bring them home. It is something that you can attempt to manage at home too, but only if you feel comfortable doing so. Pasty butt is essentially when, for people that don't know, it's when the droppings get stuck at the vent area or the cloaca there and basically creates a blockage so they can't get any more droppings out. It can be mitigated with warm water and maybe Vaseline to get that out. But I can tell you their skin is so thin that if it's really on there, if you don't know what you're doing, you could potentially rip their skin trying to get that off. So
Ooh.
that's something I would be very careful with unless you have a lot of experience doing it. But that's something certainly I can do. But I have seen even after that, even if you get that dropping that's off, they could after that be kind of constipated and then have trouble getting the droppings that are already in there out. I have actually had to give some chick enemas before. So,
Oh my goodness.
and they're sore from that too. So I think they benefit too from like an anti-inflammatory for a few days just to get everything back to normal. So that is definitely something that keep a close eye on because they can go downhill very quickly if that is not addressed.
And then if they're having abnormalities in the stool, in the bowel movements, they need to come to you so you can test it, find out what's causing it, and give the proper medications.
Right. I know classically everyone thinks of coccidia when they see any like diarrhea or blood in the droppings with chicks. And a lot of times that's probably true, but unless we actually look at those droppings under a microscope and identify if there even is a parasite, there might not even be parasites. It might be something else entirely. But if it's coccidia or if it's maybe a type of worm or something like that, because they're treated with completely different medications. So it is important to identify exactly what we're treating.
The other thing I like is there's an equation that comes into dosing liquid chlorid and everything else. I know how to do these because I did these for many, many years in an animal hospital. For someone who doesn't have that experience, it's hard to look at the bottle and say, okay, this many mLs per milligram per the dosing on the bottle. You can actually get the weight on the chick. You can help them with the dosing and tell them what they need to give. And giving the right amount can help the chick feel so much better, so much quicker.
Right. If you don't have a lot of experience calculating doses and stuff, it's very easy, one, to make an error and either underdose or overdose these little chicks. And it's stressful. It's better to just have a professional do it for you so that you can make sure that you're giving them the correct treatment and get them the care they need the fastest.
And the other thing that you can do for them too, with dehydration, you can give some sub-Q fluids to help rehydrate them quickly if they're not doing well. And the thing with chicks is if something starts to happen, it's quick. It's not like you have a lot of time.
It's fast. You don't have a lot of time. They're so tiny. Their little immune systems are not completely developed and they just don't have a lot of reserves to fall back on.
Right. And just wanted to mention like the benefit of that veterinary relationship too. Like you mentioned sub-Q fluids. Since these chicks go downhill so fast, one, it can be very hard at that point if they're not eating and drinking on their own to force them to eat or drink. One is probably not going to get you the result that you're looking for. But again, they're so tiny. It's very easy to cause them to aspirate on fluids if you're forcing them to drink water or watery food with a syringe. That's very easy to make them go downhill and even die. So being able to give fluids under the skin is something that as a veterinarian is very useful. And it can also just like they can go downhill very quickly, we can also get them feeling better very quickly by giving them some of that supportive care.
Rebecca, do you find that stress is a big component of whether a chick can turn around from an illness or not?
I would say so. I mean, birds in general are very prone to getting stressed more than like our mammal species. And I have absolutely seen some birds die just from stress alone. So minimizing that is very important. And of course, like if you are unsure of what you're doing, like all that extra handling and like forcing them to open their mouth and stuff like that can certainly cause them to get into an even worse state very quickly.
It's a lot less stress on everyone involved if you can just get your chick to a vet.
You can get that bond with your veterinarian right away. You don't need a problem with your chick to make an appointment and say, I want my chick to be looked at and I want a relationship with my veterinarian. So I'm going to schedule a well visit. Well visits aren't expensive and you have that relationship, correct? That's how it works.
At least at my clinic, if you bring me in like 10 chicks, I'm not going to charge you an exam per chick. We would do like a flock exam or something like that. It's not like you need to pick and choose which ones you would bring in. Most of us would be happy to kind of see all of them for a single cost.
And they're cute and you get to take a look at them.
Yeah. And most people, I mean, the whole staff loves seeing chicks come in. And then it also is really cool if we see them as little chicks, if we have to see them again in the future, to be like, oh, I remember them when they were tiny little fluff balls.
Having a relationship with your veterinarian is so important because when there is a problem, if you're not a client and your pets aren't patients at that hospital, it's way more difficult to get in. So a well visit, even in the very beginning, is worth it. Okay, so let's go into medicated feed now.
So this is always a hot topic in the spring when it's chick time. If you're a longtime chicken keeper, you probably already have your routine down. Again, this is addressing the many, many, many new listeners we have. When you get your chicks, you have the choice of 2 different types of feed. The first is a medicated feed and the second is unmedicated. The medicated feed is not medicated with an antibiotic. This is an antibiotic-free food. It's a substance called amprolium, and essentially it only targets one organism, a protozoa called coccidia, that causes coccidiosis in chickens.
I would also mention it's at a preventative dose, I would say, more than an actual treatment dose. So, for example, if we diagnose a chick that has coccidia or a flock that has coccidia, we would actually need to treat them with Corid or a stronger dose of amprolium. So medicated feed is supposed to be more prevention. So the dose in the food is very, very low.
That's good to know. So, Dr. Rebecca, you would recommend, or you yourself have used the medicated feed in order to prevent coccidiosis in your chicks, correct?
I think the only reason maybe not to, well, I guess there's 2 reasons. The other one we'll talk about in a second. But if you are very gung-ho about raising organic chicks, organic eggs, I do think you are not supposed to, I guess, use any medicated feed. You would have to use an organic feed. But that being said, if that's not a super important thing, and I think that's really hard to do anyway, raise them strictly organic, I would say there's really no reason not to feed the medicated feed. It's going to help prevent coccidia, which can be very devastating to young chicks. That can wipe them out and make them sick very quickly. So why not get ahead of it and make sure that they're protected against it and prevent it? An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right?
Yeah,
exactly. Yep. Yeah.
So I personally, every single time I've gotten chicks, I feed them medicated feed. And I will pretty much do that unless I'm integrating them with adults. I will feed them medicated feed the entire time that they're chicks.
Us too. There's one other reason. There is the vaccine against coccidia. And if your hatchery offers this vaccine and you get it, it is advised to use the non-medicated food.
Exactly right. Because our chicks come from McMurray Hatchery now. McMurray does offer the coccidiosis vaccine. So all of the chicks we get from them are vaccinated for Merck's and coccidiosis. It only costs $1 or $2 extra, and it is well worth the peace of mind that comes with it. I think we're all of one mind, go with the medicated feed every time.
Yeah. The medicated feed, it's been studied for many, many years, billions of dollars poured into it, and it's out there because it works. There's no reason not to feed it.
You know who worked on the development of the coccidiosis vaccine?
I don't know. Tell us.
Dr. Allison Martin, who was the head of the Livestock Conservancy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I thought that was amazing. I found that out about her later. I thought that was really great. So you've got your feed, you've got your brooder under control, but sometimes things can still happen. Rebecca, what kind of injuries do you see with chicks?
I would say the main injuries, unfortunately, a lot of times are probably from the other chicks themselves. They can certainly be mean to each other and peck each other. So a lot of pecking injuries are something that I see. And a lot of times that's because they might not have enough space or entertainment. So always get the biggest brooder that you can fit and afford, because one, chicks grow so fast and they get so big so quickly. They might look really tiny the first day you get them, but they're going to grow out of that brooder very quickly. But if they don't have enough space and entertainment, they will start to peck each other for entertainment. And you can certainly have like a bully chick sometimes, but I would say pecking injuries are one of the things that I see a lot.
One of my chickens was a victim of a pecking injury at like 3 weeks old. My 3-barred rocks, Bernadette, was bullied by the other 2. They had pecked a spot on her neck so badly that she had to go to the doctor, be on antibiotics, and take care of that. And it took a while because then the feathers had to regenerate and grow back in that they were plucking out. So I've had to do that myself. I've had to take chicks into the veterinarian to get the proper stuff that we needed.
That patch of her neck was naked and inflamed. She didn't feel well. She didn't want to eat. Poor thing. I remember that. That was bad.
It could happen if you get a bully chick. That's for sure. And that's a possibility.
And then, of course, this should go without saying, but make sure that like if you have cats, that they don't have access to chicks, or that you are still creating like a predator safe environment for them. Snakes and stuff can get into garages. So just making sure that you aren't allowing predators to come in and try to eat your chicks, because trust me, they will try if they know that they're there.
Dr. Rebecca, do you ever see things like soft tissue injuries or legs that are a little funky on a chick?
I would say, I don't know if they're really injuries a lot, but we do unfortunately see things like splay leg or slip tendon. I would say I see slip tendon more in like ducks and turkeys than in chicks, but it can happen. And what that means is they have an Achilles tendon just like we do. It's a lot longer proportion to body size in them because of just how their legs are conformed. But sometimes developmentally, instead of that tendon running straight down the back of the leg and can slip off to one side. And most of those chicks will be pretty lame. They will not really want to walk on that leg. The leg might look rotated, and it usually gets worse and worse as they get older. And then, of course, you have splay leg too. I had one that was so dramatic. It looks like the chick was doing basically a split the whole time.
Oh,
I would say most of those are probably developmental, but of course, they're so little and fragile that it is also very easy to accidentally hurt their legs by handling them too aggressively or something like that too. They're super fragile.
Are those conditions treatable?
I would say that can be a hot topic sometimes, if they can be treated or not. I unfortunately to date have not really had a successful case, but I think most of that is because people wait too long to have them seen. I think if you're seeing anything that looks weird about one of your chick's legs, get it to a vet sooner rather than later, because I think if we were able to see them really quick, sometimes what we'll do is we'll hobble the legs for like splay leg, which means we put like a piece of tape just in between the legs just to keep them where they're supposed to be. Things like that are fairly easy for us to put on them, but I think they're really only successful if we catch it super, super early.
Honestly, when we talk about getting your chick or chicken to the vet, we've been emphasizing that lately. Earlier is better. Someone asked us about a crop issue in an adult chicken. How long would you wait to see if a crop cleared? And our answer has become a day or two at the most. It's the same with chick problems, maybe even sooner. If you see a problem, call that day and try to get an appointment.
And at least describe what you're seeing. Hopefully your vet has some good experience with chickens, and they might even be able to tell you like, oh, that is something, maybe we can wait and see what happens. Or they might be like, no, we need to see that as soon as you're able to come in.
Which will give you some peace of mind too.
exactly. Yes. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about failure to thrive in chicks, because it happens. I have dealt with failure to thrive in chickens due to a head injury to one of my chicks. I pulled her through. It took some intensive, no sleep for 24-hour days to nurse her back. But I was in contact with you throughout the entire thing. And failure to thrive, I think, is another big one where they have to have a relationship with you and talk to you and bring them in and say, what can I do to help this chick at this point? And that can be not getting enough nutrients or wry neck. Those would be another reason to come in. They're all like nutrient imbalances.
We just did an episode on vitamin and mineral deficiencies in your flock. And the one thing I discovered in the research that I didn't know is that vitamin and mineral deficiencies can be passed from the hen to the egg, which I thought was fascinating. I had no idea.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was a recent study that I found. I've had one chick in all my years that had what was clearly a vitamin and mineral problem. And that was my abnormally enormous Jersey Giant rooster, Ricardo. We think he was just growing so fast. He wasn't keeping up nutritionally. He would take a couple steps and sort of collapse in exhaustion. At that point, I talked to my farm vet about it, and he said, try the polyvisol, and it seemed to work. The other possibility that occurs to me maybe is if it's one of those situations where you have too many chicks and some of the smaller ones are being bullied away from the food, maybe.
I will say, I know we're talking about chickens mostly, but I do see a lot of ducks. People, for whatever reason, think that they can just feed ducklings chick feed, and that is definitely not the case. And I see a lot of ducks with developmental issues because they were not fed a waterfowl starter, because they have different requirements for niacin. So that is one thing I do see in practice. And I would say, unfortunately, a lot of people just don't realize that you have to get duck food. So if you're raising ducks and chickens, just make sure that the ducks, they're getting additional niacin or you're feeding them a different food. But yeah, vitamin deficiencies, I think they are out there, but I don't think they're as common as people think they are. For example, wry neck, I know a lot of people think is as simple as a vitamin E deficiency and selenium, but of course, there's also neurologic issues that can cause it, whether it be head trauma, meningitis, things like that can also cause the exact same symptoms. And unfortunately, vitamin E and selenium probably isn't going to help those chicks. I would say one thing that is very important to know if you are raising silkies or Polish breeds with other chicks, they a lot of times don't have a fully formed skull. So they have like a hole in the top of their skull. So it's very important to make sure that they aren't getting bullied or pecked on, because one peck in the center of their head can cause actually some bad head injury and neurologic issues.
That's really, really good to know.
Especially since you have houdans coming to you.
Exactly.
I'd heard about the head. I didn't realize how fragile it was, though. I had no idea about the duckling food, though. That's very interesting and valuable.
Yeah, that's valuable information right there for everyone, because a lot of people are doing mixed flocks right now. So keep that in mind. Go get the waterfowl grower and feed them separately. Have them in 2 separate brooders so that you can make sure they're getting the right nutrients. Are there any other reasons that you might be seeing chicks come into you?
I have seen a respiratory case before. So we don't see a ton of respiratory issues in chicks. Fortunately, of course, if you're having a bunch of chicks suddenly pass away, I mean, definitely get at least 1 or 2 of those into the vet so they can probably send them off for testing for you, because you really shouldn't be having like mass die-offs or anything like that. But I do occasionally see like one chick come in with respiratory issues. There was one I saw this past summer that was really just that like struggling to breathe. And there's a ton of different things that can cause respiratory problems and it can be hard to diagnose. One that we do see is called brooder pneumonia, which is also aspergillosis most of the time. And that is usually mitigated by making sure that your brooder is being kept very clean and not growing mold in any way, because that's how they can get that. Aspergillosis is essentially a fungus that birds are very susceptible to. And if you're not using the correct bedding, or if it's getting wet and growing mold, then your chicks could get that. That's something to keep in mind. I personally use pine shavings for my bedding. I don't know what you ladies use, but I've heard that other substrates are very prone, if it gets wet, to growing mold. And I think some people don't even think about that if they're getting chicks for the first time.
We both use the same. We use pine shavings. You can make them fluffy. They're insulated. They can roll in them. And like you said, keeping them as clean as possible. The trick that I use is I have a cat litter scoop, like one of those slotted.
That's what I do too.
So you can clean it out and you don't have to clean the shavings up every day, but you can scoop it out with the cat litter scoop, and every single day cleaning and making sure it's not growing mold. That's really important. Chicks, we're so glad that you're not seeing a lot of them with problems.
Something else I think is worth mentioning is that I do think failure to thrive is definitely a real thing. And I think that there are some chicks that we don't know what was wrong with them. I think some of them just developmentally or genetically, just something was not right with them. And unfortunately, there are times where I think chicks, they act sick, they might not eat as well, they might not grow as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, I think the longer that you raise chickens, you're probably at some point going to lose a chick or two, and it might not be anything that you did wrong. So I think that's important to mention too, is like, while there's a lot of things that we can try to do, and it is important to observe them and look for your sick chicks, I think there are sometimes ones that just were not great from the get-go. And it's not always your fault if you lose a chick or two. So,
you know, as long as you have the basics covered, you make sure they're warm enough. You make sure they have fresh food and clean water, that they're clean and dry. 9 times out of 10, you're probably going to have a very successful clutch raised.
Yeah. And I would say too, this might come back around to like the wellness exam, maybe coming in for a visit with your chicks, because it's not only looking at the chicks, but if you are going to, I mean, me personally, like I have my own chickens. It's not only looking at them in the clinic, but of course I understand what their husbandry is supposed to be like, what they should be eating, etc. take that opportunity not only to have the vet look at your chicks, but bring in some pictures of your setup. Be like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Does this look okay to you? Do you have any suggestions? Take that opportunity to not only ask about the chicks right in front of them, but also all of the stuff that you're doing at home as well, and making sure that it's appropriate. Because a lot of times I am not only like treating the patient in front of me, but a lot of times people are also asking me about their flock and things that they could be doing differently at home. And that's a great conversation and a great resource to have a lot of times.
Write down a few questions that you have and bring them with you, because sometimes when you go to the doctors, you forget what you're going to say and you're just like, oh, I meant to ask this and I forgot. So make a list of the questions. Like you said, it's so easy this day and age with your phone. Take a picture of your setup. Say, does this work? What do you think? And that well visit can be essential to starting a lifelong relationship through your flock with your veterinarian.
You reminded me of something I want to ask Dr. Rebecca. Dr. Rebecca, tell us whether or not you should put apple cider vinegar in your chicks' water.
Okay, my rule of thumb with apple cider vinegar is that I don't think it hurts to add, but it also is one of these things that I think is advertised as a cure-all for like any condition that you could possibly see. And that really, unfortunately, is not the case. I wish it was, but unfortunately, I don't think it has a really lot of like disease curing benefits. I mean, it might help a little bit, like maybe prevent some sauerkraut and stuff like that. But in general, it is no substitute for appropriate medication and or vitamins and electrolytes.
I guess if you don't have the electrolytes, there's packets on hand. They're fantastic. We do recommend you have them on hand. You could probably put a drop of NutriDrench in the chicks' water instead if you have to.
Yeah, I don't see why not. And that's another thing, like we talked about having the brooder set up before you bring the chicks home. Try to just have some of those other things on hand just in case. I know that you guys have talked about like a first aid kit. Try to purchase those things ahead of time just in case you need them.
So if you want a little bit more, you can look at the quick guide to chicks. It's one of our episodes that we did last year. We talk about what you should have in that first aid kit before they even get to you to help you with these ailments. It's a big responsibility. They're little babies. Having the best care possible and bringing the veterinarian into your life is always a good thing so that it takes the pressure off of you. You don't have to play doctor with these animals. There are doctors out there that have studied many, many years to do all of that.
As always, our offer still stands. If you need help finding a veterinarian, we will help you. We have not failed at this mission yet. We will find you a veterinarian. We can't promise that you might not have to drive an hour or so, though. Having a veterinarian that you can trust with your birds is just worth their weight in gold.
We love you, Dr. Rebecca. We do.
Thank you guys. You're so sweet. I got my own flock of chickens probably like 3 years ago, and it has become one of my greatest hobbies. And it is really cool to be able to take that hobby and also have it as part of my career. And it's so fun to meet all different types of chicken keepers too. At my clinic, I would say more than half of our staff members also own chickens. So I know some people are like almost embarrassed to call to bring a chicken into the vet because they feel like it's just not something that people do. At least at my clinic, we love seeing the chickens because most of us are very familiar with them and just want them to feel like, yes, this is something good that you're doing for your animal. And just because they're a chicken doesn't mean they don't deserve proper veterinary care.
They do. They deserve the best. What's the biggest bird that you've seen to date?
I have seen emus, but they're always babies.
Okay.
I would say at my clinic, probably the biggest bird that I've seen come through our door specifically was probably a great blue heron. They're just so long.
Wow.
Yeah. But when I started out working in the veterinary field, I worked at a bird rehab center and I have worked with pelicans and stuff before. They're probably the biggest bird that I've seen.
Cool.
Wow. That's super cool.
That is really cool. How lucky are we to have you as our veterinarian and our friend? You're like a wealth of information. We love having you on the show. And we get messages from everybody around the world saying, why can't we have a Dr. Rebecca near us? And we're like, we don't know.
So sweet. And
again,
I appreciate having you guys too, because I've learned so much just like accepting chickens as patients and being willing to work with them. And I love working with them. It's not a chore by any means. Sometimes you just have to learn by doing things, but then having you guys that have been chicken keepers much, much longer than I have, I learn a lot from you guys too. So.
Well, we learn a lot from each other. And as long as we all have open minds like we do, we get smarter and smarter as we go. So everyone, if you have chicks that have problems, take them to your doctors. Thank you, Dr. Rebecca, for coming on and talking with us today. It's always fun.
It really is. I always feel like these episodes go by so fast because I feel like we just keep talking about it for hours.
Okay, so we'll see you soon. We'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me.
We just want to thank Dr. Rebecca one more time for taking the time to talk with us today, hoping that our experienced chicken people, as well as our newcomers, learned a lot.
We all learn something every time from Dr. Rebecca, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's move on to
Cracking the eggs.
cracking those eggs. Now, this week is my recipe, and Holly Ann's really like cursing me out because
I'm giving you the stink eye because this is like the world's longest recipe.
I really wanted to do an empanada because I love empanadas.
I was resistant to the empanada, and that was before I knew that it was like a 3-page long recipe. But I will say they are delicious. So it's breakfast empanadas with chorizo, potato, and egg. It is freaking delicious.
And if you don't eat the chorizo, you can make it veggie.
You can take the sausage out altogether, or you can buy chorizo. Trader Joe's has it, and a lot of other places have it.
Right. I am a big person that's all into empanadas. I'm into empanadas at food trucks. Is anybody out there? Raise your hand wherever you are right now. You love a good food truck, and they always have one with empanadas. And I'm the girl that's at that truck. You have 7 different kinds. I want one of each.
It's a delicious, savory turnover. What is not to love?
I know. Broccoli and cheddar empanada. I mean, there's so many things that you can do.
I'm very envious because I usually can't eat at food trucks because I can't have gluten or dairy. And so I stand back here and smell all the amazing smells while y'all are eating the empanadas.
Am I right? There's always an empanada food truck, I feel like.
Often.
Like it's like always in the mix. And then it gets me like, I want to make these. So yeah, I have the molds to make them and everything, but they're not easy.
You can do the mold if you want. We did a freehand version for this recipe since not everyone might have them. There are a lot of steps, and so you can start prepping things ahead if you want to. Like you can make the dough up. The dough has to rest in the fridge for around 2 hours.
So that's a good day before.
Do it the day before. You can even cook the veggies the day before and then assemble the next day. So you can plan it, make it on your schedule. It does make really quick, satisfying breakfast, or you can eat them for any meal. Really.
And the other thing is you can make the dough and use it for a few days, to make them if you want to do that. Or make the dough on Friday and over the weekend, make a whole bunch of them and then just heat them up during the week and you have a good breakfast there. So it's a little bit more consuming with making the dough. Now, here's the thing. We did look up, if you're not gluten-free, you can buy the pre-made dough. You just use the mold and fill it. So that would cut out your dough part.
I have nothing to say because I am so envious of the fact that there is this giant shortcut. If, like me, you have to make your own dough, you want some cool water, a stick and a half of butter or dairy-free butter, and you want 2 3/4 cups of all-purpose flour or gluten-free flour. Actually, we should probably make that 3 cups because you're going to need to flour your hands and things.
Oh, yeah.
And then 1.5 teaspoons of salt. So that's your dough.
Now, the filling ingredients are going to be more because this is where your taste is going to come in to what you're eating. So 2 teaspoons of olive oil, a half a pound of chorizo, the casings removed, or soy rizo sliced. And the soy rizo is the vegetarian version of chorizos.
It's surprisingly good, really.
Yeah. Generous pinch of sea salt, a pinch of black pepper, 1/4 teaspoon of cayenne, 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, which paprika we all know is like basically bell pepper seasoning, a half a teaspoon of onion powder, a small potato peeled and diced, a large yellow onion chopped, a half a medium red bell pepper cored, seeded, and chopped, 2 garlic cloves. Now, my house, we use a lot of garlic.
I do too.
We love it.
This would be like 4 or 5 cloves of garlic, probably.
Yeah. 5 large eggs beaten, and a half a cup of shredded Mexican blend cheese or dairy-free shredded cheese.
Daya brand dairy-free cheese now has a Mexican cheese blend.
Nice.
Yeah.
So tell us what we're going to do.
To make the dough, you're going to start by putting the water and the butter in a pan. You're going to put that over medium-low heat, and you're going to stir it every now and again until the butter is melted. In a large mixing bowl, you're going to put the flour and the salt. You're going to make a well in the center of it, and you're going to pour in a bit of that butter-water mixture. You're going to stir it with a fork to make it start to come together. Then you can pour in the rest and really work it into a dough. It's going to be like a wet, buttery dough.
This is so different because most doughs you're starting with very cold butter and cutting it in.
Yeah, no, this is very different. Yeah.
It's very different.
So once you have it in a homogeneous mass, you're going to wrap it in plastic wrap and you're going to pop it in the refrigerator for at least 2 hours.
So that's why it's good to do the day before. Just let it sit in there and then it'll be good and ready the next day.
The next step, this depends when you're going to assemble and cook the final empanada. If you're ready to cook your filling, assemble, and bake, you're going to preheat the oven to 400 and you're going to line a large baking sheet with parchment paper or a silicone baking mat.
Right.
And then if you are about to do your fillings, you want to take all the seasonings and you want to mix them together in a bowl and set that aside, simply because you're going to be dividing it later. If you are just cooking your veggies, you don't need to turn the oven on yet. If you are making the veggies ahead of time, you're going to use a large skillet over about medium heat and start by cooking your sausage.
Right. And then you're going to take that out, let it drain. And then after you let it drain, you're going to set it aside.
Yeah, then you're going to reheat that chorizo skillet. You can drain off some of the chorizo fat, or you can leave some of it in there for extra flavor, whichever way you want to go. A splash of olive oil if you need it. And then you're going to put the veggies in and you're going to cook them. You're going to stir them occasionally so they don't stick, but you're going to cook them about 18 minutes. It's a long cook because you need the potatoes to cook.
Exactly.
Once everything is cooked through, you're going to add half of the seasonings that you just set aside and you're going to stir it all together. And then you can take the veggies and put them with the chorizo, mix them together and put the skillet back on the heat again.
It's a lot of going back and forth.
It is, yeah. I didn't bother to wipe out the skillet because why? But if you have a lot of really sticky veggies, you might want to, because what you're going to do now is make the scrambled eggs.
You know what I would use for this? Cast iron. Just use a cast iron.
You could, yeah. There's no reason not to.
Yeah.
I don't have cast iron. I have ceramic pans. But if you have it, you may as well. So you're going to pour your beaten eggs in the pan, sprinkle the cheese on top.
When you pour those eggs into the skillet, you're going to pour the remaining spices in with those eggs and cook that all together until it's about 3/4 of the way done. And then it's going to finish in the oven.
Yeah, you don't want your eggs to turn into rubber in the oven. Now you have the dough. Now it's time to roll out the empanadas. It's not that hard. You're essentially going to divide the dough into about 20 pieces. This makes about 20 empanadas. So you're going to take one ball at a time. You're going to flour your surface, flour your hands, flour your rolling pin. You're going to roll them out to about a 5-inch diameter circle, like 1/4 inch thick. They don't have to look perfect. And then you're going to put about a tablespoon of the eggs and about a tablespoon of the veggie and sausage filling. And there you can either do my rustic, I'm making quotes, my rustic method, where you fold it over and use your fingers or a fork to crimp the edges. Or you can make pretty empanadas with Chrissy's mold.
Yeah. And you know what? I was going to make this for Joe for Valentine's Day because I have a heart mold and he loves empanadas.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, that'll be cute. So if you're doing that, once you roll out your disc, you have to put the disc in the mold. Then you fill out one side with your filling and then you just push it over, then close it, and it makes it all together.
The other thing you want to do is if you're using an egg wash, you want to brush that on now. And that would just be like an egg beaten with a little bit of water. You would brush that on now to give it the shiny coating. All of the empanadas, as you make each one, you're going to move them to that lined baking sheet. And once you have it full, you're going to pop it in that 400-degree oven for about 20 minutes.
Keep in mind, you're not baking the insides. You're warming them up and you're baking the crust. So it's not going to take that long.
No, it took me longer to read the recipe than it does to make the empanadas.
So try it. You might like it. Let us know what you think. Send us pictures of your empanadas, especially if you have some really cool molds that you want to use. We would love to see it. Okay, so let's move on to retail therapy. Retail therapy. Yeah. This week's retail therapy, we're talking about Coop Neutralizers. And we're taking a look at 2 different Coop Neutralizers to see how you want to use them. Now, Coop neutralizing can be a really important aspect of your coop, your area. The coops need to be as clean as possible.
Right. And essentially the neutralizers, their job is to go in there and absorb ammonia and cut down on the ammonia smell. Obviously, you want to keep your coop clean, but if you need to freshen up between cleanings, a Coop Neutralizer is a really good way to go.
we've always said this, the poop and pee comes out together, right? So you're not necessarily going to have pockets of urine, but the ammonia from that can be toxic if it gets too much for your chickens. So we were saying that we clean our coops out once a week, once every 2 weeks. In the winter, you can go a little tiny bit longer than the summer, like 2 weeks or so. But the neutralizers are great to use in between to soak up that moisture. So we're going to look at 2 of them.
I use them in the sheep shed as well. A lot of neutralizers use lime or zeolite. Our first is ManaPro Coop and Compost. Now, ManaPro sent these out to us to use and review, and they work just as well as any other neutralizer out there. If that's the one you want to pick up for odor neutralizing, you're good to go.
ManaPro is over at Tractor Supply, so it's convenient. It's right there when you're picking up your feed if you have a Tractor Supply near you. And it's kind of the same deal. So you're going to clean out your coops and then put a layer of this down and then put your bedding, your pine shavings on top. And then as things fall through, the zeolite in the ManaPro Coop and Compost help to break things down and capture that moisture and get that aroma out of there that you don't want.
Oh, it can get so strong. It can be really bad for their respiratory system.
Yeah.
They have them on Amazon, so we have it on our Amazon storefront as well.
Right.
ManaPro also says that their formulation can help once you've composted the coop waste. Their formulation helps fruits and veggies absorb nutrients better. We're not sure exactly the mechanism by which this works, but give it a try and see what you think.
Yeah. So essentially, it can help your compost pile kind of work itself down a little quicker. Let us know what you think. If you've used this product, we'd love to hear from you.
So the second product we have is a little different because it goes in your compost pile. Strong Animals Coop to Garden, and it has all kinds of good stuff in it.
Right. So the ManaPro you can use in the coop, and then once the stuff comes out of the coop and you put it in your pile, then you can use the Strong Animal Chicken Essentials Coop to Garden because this has a bunch of stuff that's going to help break that compost pile down much faster for you so that you can turn that over and make it into a nice, rich soil. Right down to lemon oils that are organic and lime oils, probiotics, everything that's going to help everything break down pretty quick.
Yeah, it's really great stuff. And I look forward to using some compost in my garden in the spring.
Yeah, try it out.
Let us know what you think.
Okay, so should we tell everybody what we're going to be talking about next week?
Next week is another 2.0. We are taking another look at the Jersey Giant.
One of your faves?
Yes. Our main topic is fantastic. We are working with the wonderful Kelly from Poultry DVM. We're doing rooster love because it's Valentine's Day. We're going to talk bachelor flocks and rooster behavior and all good stuff.
And who gets the rose?
Cracking the eggs, we're doing a sweetheart cake. This is a fudge layer cake with strawberry cream filling.
Because you want to share it with your honey.
Yeah. And retail therapy. We're going to do some very pretty jewelry for the chicken lover in your life with Delectables Jewelry.
It's so pretty. You don't want to miss this. Okay, so what should we tell everybody to do until next week?
Hug your chickens
every day and kiss them too. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
If you'd like to see more of us, please follow us on Instagram at Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. If you'd like to help us grow the podcast, please leave us a written review on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, please visit our Patreon page, patreon.com/Coffee with the Chicken Ladies. Thanks for listening.